All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate everyone being on today. Big focus today is inventory management 101, which should be a great topic to cover, especially this time of the year, as all of you are inundated with your boxes and shipments coming in. So as we get started, just kind of a few reminders as far as the USG stuff. We are in the fourth week of our book study. We still have a couple books if you want to jump in on that. We'd definitely love to have you part of it. Be great to have you on it. Just a reminder, as you guys are getting all your shipments in, if you've got old stuff that you're finding, you need to find a good home for them, please let me know. We're really looking for anything besides laundry loops at this point. I will have to say no to laundry loops. We've gotten a lot of those and we're inundated with those. So, but anything else, we're really open to taking and be a huge help. So please let me know. If those of you that are not familiar with the program, we pay for shipping. We provide boxes and bags, coaches locker cleanouts, make things pretty easy for you for the Clean Out for a Cause program. So a lot of you hit me up actually after the last session. Really appreciate that. And it helped us finish our trip to Israel. We just had 15 students come back from Israel, had an awesome opportunity over there. Other two reminders, especially this time of the year, and we won't meet for a while. If you have any students that are interested in making a career in sports, we have what's called the USG Academy that really comes and helps alongside and helps those students kind of advance their career. We kind of help and support them, and it's kind of the beginning part of being part of Uncommon Sports Group, which is great. And then the Read and Reflect Scholarship program will start off again this fall. We got $30,000 that we're doing again this year, 15 each semester. A great opportunity for anybody that wants to apply. It is open. It can be used for anything from books and tuition to paying for certification, getting to different conferences, conventions, whatever you want to use that for. So know that that's available for you guys as well. So house cleaning type stuff, just remember for your CEUs, I said it a couple times, make sure you got first, last name, school, organization, your district, certified, not certified. The other thing that, and don't kill the messenger on this one, but the other thing I was reminded of, just make sure your cameras must be on during this. So we can continue to get CEUs for this is a big deal. Make sure your guys' cameras are on as we go back and review everything. So and then at the end, start logging in now. We'll have the QR code to scan, and that way you can get credit for this session towards your CEU. So again, log in on your phone now. That way it's ready and available for you. So let me see here. All right. And to get started here, upcoming schedule for everybody. Just want to let everyone know that we've got really the next one will be in end of September with Hockey Equipment 101. That'll be a unique topic that we haven't covered in a while, so that'd be great. And then this will take us through the end of the year with budgeting, lacrosse, and then laundry to finish out the 2023 year. Big help from all of you is as we build out the schedule. If you think you can provide some input to this, we'd love to have you as part of the panel on a lot of this stuff. It really kind of helps us out, keeping things rolling in the right direction, makes our lives easier as well. So anything we can do to kind of educate and help you guys be a big win for all of us. So I'm just going to check. We are waiting for one more panelist. We'll go ahead and get started. So today's panel, Tim is joining us from the University of Notre Dame. Jeremy Lees from the University of South Florida is going to join us. I don't see Chuck on here yet, but Chuck is going to try to join us from Louisville. And then JD Jordan from University of Wyoming. So that's our panel today. I put together this panel actually just because knowing everybody, getting some feedback from some folks, Everyone's kind of been in different areas with different inventory systems. This is not a inventory system sales pitch. I was, wanted to make sure that we weren't doing that. Really, this is geared towards just figuring out like how do you manage your inventory, kind of the basics to it, and giving feedback from even times when a lot of these guys were even maybe using paper, or maybe they still use paper and a system, those types of things. So if you guys have any other questions or things that you want to know more specifically, feel free to use the chat as we go through. We'd love to field questions towards the end. And again, just thank you to Jeremy, Tim, and JD for being a part of the panel. So we'll kind of go in that order as we go through questions here. Our first question, just kind of as an introduction, can you introduce yourself, kind of where you're from, and then, what is your current system, and what are the top reasons you use it for? So Tim, we'll start with you and then go to JD and then Jeremy.
Yeah, hi everybody. Welcome. We currently use FR-Track. I think we just closed out the first year of our contract in it. In the past, I've had to use, the Excel paper when I was at South Dakota State. And really the top reasons that we use it here are for inventory tracking. So when we get our bulk order from Under Armour, which we just did about 3 weeks ago or so, that's a main reason to track the inventory, and then a lot of reporting. So we're able to pull reports for both what we have delivered on hand, a lot of issue reports to what we give out to staff and students that, hasn't really been a priority in the past that we're trying to make a priority, and really just a lot of reporting and showing kind of what we do, and to be able to show that data has been really helpful for us.
Thanks, Tim. JD, would you mind sharing?
Yeah, I'm JD Jordan, University of Wyoming. We are currently using SportSoft. We've had a quick check out here. When I was at Akron, we were paper, Excel, Google Sheets, and then we moved on to SportSoft. Most of what we're using it for is football, specific at Wyoming. I've used it for all sports. We had a general issue program at Akron that we use it for across all of our sports. So we're trying to use it in some different ways in some different places.
Thanks, JD. Jeremy, would you mind chiming in for us?
Yeah, sure. No problem. Thanks for having me on. So we're currently with EquipCheck, been with them for a few years now. Over the history, I've been with probably every inventory software over my 20-year career that you can name. So, but to the question, we use obviously our paper. We use paper, Excel, and obviously the computer with EquipCheck, but we use the paper in the form of our order confirmations. And that's to kind of just check the inventory as it comes in, and then input it into the system, into EquipCheck, and then track it from there. And we use it across the board, all of our sports, even from an athletic standpoint, from an administration standpoint, and even dabble in the sports medicine world as well. So we track just about everything.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but do you use the inventory system, your system, to manage all of your inventory? You talk about the computer-based piece. Are you tracking some of your stuff using spreadsheets, some of it for the computer? Why or what? I mean, maybe you've changed back and forth. Why or why not? Why is it easier to track maybe certain things? I know from my experience being in a lot of equipment rooms, some of the higher dollar value items are tracked. Some of them aren't. Maybe you don't track every pair of socks that goes out the window. I think it has to do with how many people you have on staff. So if you could dive in a little bit about this kind of question, be great. Jeremy, we'll start with you and work our way back to Tim.
Yeah, no problem. So we went through I guess you would call it a gap analysis about 3 or 4 years ago, a fancy word for internal audit. And they didn't use the word audit because they didn't want to scare us, and the government wasn't involved and all that stuff. But what they found was, when we got CPAs involved and everything like that, our policy is to track everything in our system, using our system, of a $50 retail value and higher. And that's not to say that we don't track, day-to-day item stocks and everything under that. But when they do come down and do spot checks and audits, that's really what they're looking for. It was a 2-year process, and I'd have to go back and look at all the documents and everything like that. But That's pretty much the gist of it. So to your point, obviously a lot of high dollar items, serialized things, helmets, shoulder pads. Some of our sports do track the uniforms. It's a little harder for some other areas, but we do dabble in just about everything, like I said.
The other stuff, Jeremy, are you using paper for, or are you just kind of using your eyes to check?
A little bit of everything. Like we're not putting socks in there, daily use items. I mean, for us, things like that, we're just using our eyes. But like, if you're talking about t-shirts that might fall under the threshold, or some things that are close, we're probably still putting them in the system. We're likely still putting them in the system, but just not putting a dollar value in there. From an audit standpoint, our confirmations are good enough to check that box if they ever come back and audit our program. And then from a tracking standpoint, when we do spot checks, the business office comes down and does spot checks. They're pulling a record of everything $50 and above. So if we don't put a dollar value in there, it doesn't trigger that status.
And then real quick, that $50 value, I know some of you are probably thinking this. Does that include embellishment, or is that just what you're buying for before pre-embellishment?
Yeah, that's kind of tricky. So we go off of the purchase price. So I mean, if we're buying it blank and it's, the tag of what our cost is $50 retail. I mean, I guess yes and no. It just depends on if it comes straight from the manufacturer, or we're having to buy something blank and embellish it ourselves. So a little bit of both.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. JD, would you mind adding to this?
Yeah, we do not have an audit system in place. I think they think we don't spend enough money or do enough at Wyoming to trigger any of that. We do have an audit of our policies and procedures, but they don't dive into our inventory and what we're passing out. We also don't tax, so everything is kind of for the equipment room. It's not for any other outside groups, so we approach it a little bit differently. I use it for our record keeping, just if there's any questions about what happened. But at Wyoming, our system is specifically for football. So football's the only one with an equipment room. Everybody else has a storage closet that coaches have access to, ops people have access to. And so when we implemented a system here, it was decided that the Olympic sports were not going to use a system because the coaches didn't want to use it, and it would have been impractical if they're not going to use it and it doesn't work right.
Yep.
So that it's been an interesting thing for me, where I came from a place that everywhere had an equipment room and everything was stored inside the room with an equipment manager. Here it's a little more open, a little more of an honor system that the coaches are responsible for some of their stuff. And then I preload all my orders. So everything that's coming in, shorts, t-shirts, hoodies, all that stuff, shoes, footwear, helmets, shoulder pads, all of that's in the system. Uniforms are not. We don't track those with barcodes. Just so we don't go through a ton. And the daily use stuff we don't put in at all. It's all eyeball. So we place our big order to start the year, and if I need fill-ins along the way, we have a certain area where all the backups are kind of kept. So it's a little bit different, but we'll use a paper check-in system. So we'll print the orders into a binder, check all the boxes in, and then I'll go edit the software on the back end instead of doing it during this time of year. My goal is to have everything uploaded in May when it's a little slower.
Awesome. Thanks, JD. Tim, would you add?
Yeah. Here, with our kind of unique contract with Under Armour, any piece of Under Armour apparel, footwear that comes through the door is automatically uploaded into the system, and we'll check it in the big booking order delivery days. As far as checking out, we'll try to check out as much as we can, just so we have that data at the end of the year. If and for whatever reason we need it, we haven't really had to utilize it too much yet, but it's something new that the business office is kind of interested in. But for the most part, it's order tracking, it's athlete staff issue. But if somebody needs a pair of socks, are we gonna check it out if we remember to? Yes. If not, then a lot of times we'll archive that stuff once we get into some slow time, just so we can track the order deliveries and all that types of good stuff. So the smaller item stuff, we're not we're not really too keen on. It's right now, because we order so much and the volume that we do order. This is just the best way that we can track it coming from Under Armour to us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Moving on to our next question, kind of ties into some of the topics that were covered, but you know, how are you using your system for order planning? I know this is obviously boxes are here, man, planning's like 2 months away, sometimes sooner. What are you doing size tracking wise, inventory usage levels, things like that? How are you using all of that to plan for the next year? So Tim, we'll start with you and work our way back to Jeremy.
Yeah, we do a lot of size tracking. So, you know, because we're a little unique here. We only have 2 full-time people for 24 Olympic sports. We have to rely a lot on our ops people to help us get the order started, kind of organize it. We're there along the way to help, and then we'll implement it, place the orders, those types of things. And then we always have the sizes for whenever we need to, on like report day, we're getting soccer is ready going right now, so I can easily see who needs what size, get it all ordered, put together for them, and then we just kind of go from there. But a lot of there's some sports that we don't track near as well. You know, our rowings, our swimming, a lot of times we get product and those sports want their apparel and their footwear right away, so we box it up, we take it over to them, and we issue everything out to the athletes, and then the rest will go to staff members. So that's kind of how we've been doing some of that stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. JD, would you mind chipping in?
Yeah, so for using our system, we use the size gathering feature. So depending on what I'm ordering, I'm constantly going back and forth between that and looking at what the current size sheet is for the team, and then projecting out, you know, if we know that we're losing a bunch of linemen in a given year, we're not too bad with transfers here, so I can still kind of somewhat predict size groupings. And then for the other sports, we have a shared spreadsheet that our Olympic sport person is going to do with our ops or liaison for each sport. So they'll use that as we go through the ordering process as kind of our guiding light. And then for inventory, we definitely go look and see if there's carryover items, like generic impression stuff and basic color stock items from Adidas that they carry over. I'll go see what's on the shelf using the system and kind of change our order up based on that. So if they carry over a certain cleat style in the same color for us, we'll use what inventory we have and kind of look at what actually needs to get ordered for next year.
Great. Thanks, JD. Jeremy, would you help us out?
Yeah, for sure. Very similar to the guys there, but you know, using the system itself to track levels like on different things, and then from a sizing perspective, you know, not giving a sales pitch here, but in QuipCheck, we have a questionnaire function that we can create a link and get specific sizes to any incoming transfers, freshmen, what have you. Is very helpful. So once we send that link out and the individual fills it out, we can actually accept it, and it plops it right into their profile, and it helps us, you know, it helps us compile the sizing information when we're trying to place mass orders in November for our summer deliveries like everybody else. So that's a big key component to it. And, you know, like I said, just monitoring the levels in the system, keeping that accurate daily so that when those orders do come time, we know kind of where we sit and what we need to restock and those sort of things.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. Question for you, kind of not system related, we're kind of an added to this one. And if you want to chime in, feel free. Percentages. I know a lot of folks use, you know, a percentage bump to make sure they have enough when they order year over year. Do any of you guys use that, or, you know, 10% more if you're ordering, or are you guys ordering an exact number, or how are you guys handling that?
I'll jump in on that. It's sport by sport for us. So we order pretty spot on for our smaller Olympic sports. That we have coaches that are super budget conscious in some of those teams that, you know, they don't want to buy any extras and we have to twist their arm to get an extra large or an extra medium and something. For football, I look at total number. it's a budget thing. It's less about like percentage and more about, I look at how many smalls, how many XLs I use in a given year. And then we ran low on something, I need to over order that. I switch my sizes around based on what we used the previous year and try to hit the target a little bit better. But football always is the bigger over order, because that's where everybody comes to for donor stuff, if they need extra donor things, or speakers coming into campus and talking to people. I'm always the one that gets hit up, so I make sure that I have what I need for overage for the team, and then I have an overage of the overage for the miscellaneous needs that come up along the way. And it's all really budget based for me. It's not a certain percentage. I can even tell you what my over order percentage is off the top of my head without going and doing the math, but I would guess on like a t-shirt, and we're a smaller staff football team, I probably order 220 shirts if it's for players and for the whole staff. If it's for everybody that I give stuff to, I order about 220 shirts, and then I might need to fill in May. I order, all my stuff comes blind, so I have a little bit of a hedge my bets strategy where I fill in on things in May if I can with t-shirts and sweats, like the common items, not the sideline pieces and the more book only items.
Thanks, JD. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I mean, with the status of the transfer portal, I think that we've had a big emphasis on making sure we have extras, so when those athletes do come in, we have product on hand for them. Try to make that we don't go off of a percentage. It's more of kind of a gut feeling and what the size range is for that specific item. If we've got a team that's heavy in larges and extra larges, and we'll make sure to bump up those quantities to kind of reflect that. And that's kind of how we do the overages, and just make sure that we're all on the same page, and that if we need to fill in with inline product, because a lot of what we order is custom, just to make sure that they have an inline product available if we need to order fill-ins.
Yeah, I'd agree with very similar to what Tim just said. And a little combination of what JD said as well, just kind of monitoring things. We focus, our focus is more shifted to a semesterly basis. So it really depends on what the need is, whether you're in season, out of season, and try to get as accurate as possible. Obviously, some of the custom stuff, you can't really do that. So that's where we pad some things for, whether it's donors like JD said, or things like that, and then travel, what have you, where you really want your custom stuff, and then look at the semester basis stuff as far as practice usage, weight room, all those different things, daily items, really considering. And then, as the roster adjusts through those semesters, making those adjustments on those orders, and really using the inventory system to do that semester through semester.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Next question, really kind of football specific. And I know, Tim, you've got history in football, so you're good here too. How are you using your guys' systems, whether it's paper, pen, the computer system, whatever it is, to help track helmets in football, or helmets and shoulder pads, reconditioning, all that kind of stuff? So we'll go ahead and start with Tim. You want to chime in kind of your history there, and then work our way to JD and then Jeremy.
Yeah, so I was a football equipment manager at Drake and South Dakota State. At Drake, we again had FR Track, and we were able to track helmets and shoulder pads and accessories. We did everything through there. We'd still have paper sheet just as a backup, just in case while we were there. That was back in 2014 to 18. So, and then when I was at South Dakota State, we didn't have an inventory system. So I would go off of Excel spreadsheets and what I had placed with our rep, and check it in that way. And then I had Excel spreadsheets of what style, size, all the makeup of the helmets and shoulder pads, all the ancillary information that I had on hand, and I would always continue to update it from that standpoint. Here, I know the guys over in football use it quite a bit, just as a tracking source for both their practice and the game helmet. The game helmet is a pretty high dollar value here, so they want to make sure that they're tracking everything And they use the RFID scanners to make that a little bit more efficient for them over there.
Thanks, Tim. JD?
Yeah, so we put barcodes and everything. And I actually really like that because I like being very intentional that I'm scanning the right thing in and out to the right player. But we use barcodes on shoulder pads and helmets every time that it goes to recon, every time we get it back, every time it goes out to a player, every time it's back from a player. We're logging it in the system. It's, for me, it's a huge CYA thing that if anybody ever files a lawsuit, we've got, hard data in a system that I can download a spreadsheet and say, hey, we checked it out to him on, July 27th when it came back from recon, and he wore it for the season, and it went out for recon in January, and then we checked it back out to him for spring ball, and then it went out to recon again. If it switched players, I can show that we reconned it between players wearing it. And a really big believer in that. So it's something that's a liability piece or it's a high dollar item, being very intentional and tracking it closely, which we do. Big believer in that, but we use a ton for that. But I want to know exactly where my stuff is. If Fidell's got it, if Chet's got it, if Ian's got it, we go back and reference that a lot as we're getting freshmen in. It's like, okay, we have this many at recon, I have this many on the shelf. How many are we short? How many do we need to order? Does it make sense to take the kid into a true fit if we're having to spend money on a new helmet? It just helps us make better decisions in the moment to be able to pull up a spreadsheet and know exactly what I have and where it's at.
Awesome. Thanks, JD. Jeremy?
Yeah, very similar to JD. We're barcode every helmet, barcode every shoulder pad when it goes out to recon. Same thing, like not to be repetitive, but I'll just say what JD said. But yeah, it's very comforting. And like I said, going through that gap analysis and kind of audit process is one of the musts, especially from a CYA standpoint. Campus attorneys get involved and stuff like that. Having the documentation. Obviously, the vendors have it, Shutt, Riddell, and the recon companies, but to have it match up on your side, just to dot the I's and cross the T's is ideal.
Are any of you guys tracking build outs of your helmets, face masks, chin straps? Are you guys keeping track of tabs on that? And how do you do that? I mean, I know a lot of people want to do that, and the realistic, can they do that with time and energy? How do you guys do that, and why is it important?
Yeah, so from our standpoint, I'll just stay unmuted. Sorry, guys. But we're entering face masks and chin strap styles and things like that into the profile and making those adjustments as it changes, all the way to visors, face mask visors, jaw pad size if we're changing jaw pads. And we're morphing more into the scan universe, as I'm sure a lot of people are, with the True Fits and Axioms and UR1s and even the Visis now. So trying to keep those on file as well. But trying to compile as much data as possible from a CYA standpoint, but then also, like, if one of our guys transfers to another university, we can pass that information on just for comparison's sake, or even to the next level. A lot of the NFL guys are calling and asking for that screenshot. So it's very easy to transfer. And if you have all that data in there, it helps those guys out a lot. And then obviously we're tracking it as well, just like we talked about the inventory piece of it, tracking face mask styles, checking chin straps and cam lock versus, traditional sort of thing. So more data, the better.
I'll second that. I'm Les Totten, who does sports soft, once told me he thinks I have the most categories out of anybody, because I put everything in there so that when my students are working on something or my assistant is, it's the information's there. So it's funny you brought that up, because I have my build sheets from my Trues that came in and I'm actually uploading into their profiles right now. So every part that's in a True or an Axiom, I have in our sports soft system. My Riddell rep told me that he can pull a report on his end, but I want to make sure that if we have something that happens at practice, I can go in and be like, okay, the kid stuck his helmet in front of a heater and melted the right side. I know what pad needs to go in that helmet there's no question. I'm not trying to read a melt pad or something. And we track everything, chin strap, how it's attached, if it's cam lock, if it's strap lock, if it's Douglas adapter, whatever that helmet is built to, it's in my system. So if a kid ever has a question, the student manager has a question of, you know, hey, what goes on this? Like, you should be able to build the helmet from shell to parts all the way through from our system.
Awesome. It helps with recon too. I'm sure coming back, you can rebuild them without having to refit, which is a huge time savings. Tim, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, just from kind of the Olympic standpoint of, you know, baseball, softball is a pretty easy, not near as intricate as what football helmet needs, but just to make sure that the profiles are up to date. So again, from ordering purposes, I kind of take over that hard goods order. I know exactly how many size shelled helmets we need, how many, you know, cages for softball, and how many C flaps or jaw guards we need, so we can get the most accurate order and not make sure we're overinflating our order.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Next question. I know a lot of us have kind of touched on it. I know the A word audit was mentioned a few times, but is your administration involved in inventory system, other departments involved? I know sports medicine was mentioned by someone. And this is the other part to talk about is if you guys are involved in the taxation piece. I know JD, you're not, but if you guys are involved or have at least even had the conversations, we'd love to hear about it. We'll start with Jeremy and work our way back to Tim. So
Yeah, so I use that scary word audit. Yeah, we didn't have a full-on audit. Again, it was called a gap analysis because it was done internally and nothing was turned over, you know, officially. It was just, hey, here's where the gaps are. Here's kind of what you guys need to work on and fix. And it was during COVID, so it drug out for over like 2 years and it was painful. But that also helped us find a lot of things. Avoid taxation. We don't tax here. So we found, you know, positives and negatives out of it. And to the administration question, our admin is involved, but purely from a spot check standpoint. So like our CFO oversees that, and they come down quarterly and just do spot checks, and they'll pick 2 or 3 random items off of our inventory levels and just kind of keep us in check. And they do it based on in season, out of season. So they're not really checking things in season because they understand the moving parts to that and kind of how busy we are. But at the end of every season, each of our teams conducts a hard count on paper, and we clean up the inventory software at the end of those seasons, and then they'll come down and do their spot checks and, you know, hey, we're off by 2 or 3 here. Why is that? Oh, we checked this out or gave this to so-and-so and just need to update the records. So, and then as far as the other departments are involved, like I said, you know, sports medicine might track knee braces and things of that nature. And we've also had our IT department at one point when we were using laptops and things like that for loaners and whatnot, track inventory from that standpoint as well.
awesome. JD, would you help us out?
Yeah, our admin is not very involved at all. I was the one that went to them and asked for an inventory system here. That was what I wanted to implement, and it was driven by, I think we're gonna get into this in a later question, but my sales pitch was tracking helmets and shoulder pads. They don't really care about the apparel side. We're not taxing. They're not worried about things going out the door that shouldn't. There's a high level of trust with me and my staff that we're doing things the right way. And then on the Olympic side, you know, our coaches have access to their stuff, and it's a weird place in 2023. There's a high level of trust placed in all of us as employees that it's all, you know, use your honor and do the right thing. And for the most part, that's what happens out here. So it's a nice thing that we're not hamstrung by a lot of rules and audits and stuff. I will say though, audit's only scary if you're doing something wrong. It's not there to, typically they're not coming to get you. They're just checking them off. Like Ideal Campus audit on $100,000 plus capital items regularly. And the first time I got an email from the audit department, it was like, oh crap, like what's gonna happen? And she shows up and she's friendly, and it's like, hey, just walk me through where this stuff is. I just need to verify it's still on campus, that you didn't do something with it. It's like, yep, we're good. So if you've never been through an audit, if you're a younger equipment manager, you know, be a little leery, but it's not the end of the world. As long as you're doing the right stuff, you'll be fine. And if you weren't there when the bad things happen, you're definitely gonna be fine.
Thanks, JD. Tim?
Yeah, our administration isn't really involved with the system. Again, the way that our contract is kind of structured, they're not too worried about things going out the door. I think the helmet, shoulder pads, those types of hard good things, which our football staff is really good at tracking and keeping up on. They're more interested in the data and the reports that we're able to print out. Just being overseen by the business office, they're data driven. They love seeing that. They love seeing, what our percentage is that we have received, what, those different types of reports that we can run through there. And luckily, we've never been audited. It's never come up. I don't know if it's something that they're interested in or not. And then the taxation is kind of run a little bit different here. We don't have to run it through. There's a whole other process that the business office kind of helps us do that with like retail VIP accounts that we're able to have. So that's kind of how the taxation works here for us.
Great. Thanks, guys. And kind of a big question is, I think everyone has made changes on this call. I've been through, Jeremy even mentioned, I think he's been through all of them. As you guys have made changes or looking at adding inventory systems, what kind of pieces of advice can you give the people as they go through it? Because it's not as easy, or is not as, even for me as a former sales guy of these systems, I know it's not easy on y'all. So the best pieces of advice that you can share in either making a change or having a system, and then the other part of this conversation is, and JD kind of touched on this, is how do you justify the use of a computer system versus a paper system in a lot of different ways. So Tim, we'll start with you and work our way back to Jeremy.
Yeah. I wasn't really involved in the process when we had FR Track at Drake. My boss, Troy Jepson, kind of handled that part of it and got it implemented. When I was at South Dakota State, I tried and went a couple of different routes with it, with, inventory tracking, helmet, shoulder pads, those types of things. But here it wasn't so much a budget issue. We've always had one. And when I first got here, we were Helmet Tracker, and that contract had come up, and we all just kind of said, let's do our due diligence, let's look out and see what else is out there, and we all decided to go with FR Track. It just fit our vision better, and the business office was very supportive of that. Really, the biggest piece of advice I can give is just make sure you do your due diligence, reach out to equipment managers, reach out to your vendors, bend their ear, see what works, what doesn't, what you think would fit your mold, and the vision that you have to run the system, because everybody's different. JD and Jeremy run it different than we do, and everybody's situation is different. But your vendors are also there to kind of help you and guide you along the way with those things. So reach out, ask questions, do all those things, because that's only going to help put you up for success.
Awesome. JD?
Yeah, I'd echo that comment. That my biggest thing that I wrote down was shop around. I think it's really important that you talk to multiple vendors and you talk to multiple equipment managers when you're looking at doing it. I've had the chance to implement it at 2 places and justify it at 2 places. When I implemented it at Akron, I shopped around. I talked to everybody at that time, and I found out what fit best for what I was trying to do for that particular situation. So you need to evaluate what you want to use it for, and then you talk to other equipment managers and see what they're using it for, because they may have an idea. Like with Jeremy and knee braces, that may be something that you can try to pitch to Sports Med and get them on board to justify it further, keeping track of other stuff. The things that I wrote down for features that I would tell you to shop around on is, if you want photos in the system of things to make it easier for student managers and other people to identify stuff quickly. How easy is it to upload your orders? Are you uploading it? Is the company uploading it? I'm very partial to what I'm using because it ties into a label printer system, which I kind of whipped on the first question because I didn't answer the second part. But that's a huge component for me with SportsOff. Is I think it makes my operation extremely efficient when we're marking things out for big groups. As I organize both the spreadsheet in size order, and we print the labels in size order. and it's really hard for student managers to mess it up. Because I rip the labels and I just paper clip them to the sheet. I say, here you go, here's all mediums, whole amount of medium box with medium bend. And we cut down on a lot of errors, and they're not flipping through a binder looking for a particular person. It's just printed on demand. And then we use tip out drawers above our heat presses to keep them on demand as well.
Awesome.
How many users you can have, how many equipment rooms you can have, you can assign things to different equipment rooms. So like for me, I have Adidas across, multiple buildings and facilities, similar to everybody else for the most part at a larger level. Can you identify easily like, hey, this pair of compression shorts is in the field house versus in the football building? Look at the different reports you can generate, something Tim mentioned that stood out is like, how much of your order are you actually getting in? How much is the vendor canceling? How much are they late on? And being able to kind of actually have hard numbers when you go talk to your reps and your business office, and then taxes. So those are the main things that I've always kind of looked for, depending on what we were doing and where I was at. And then as far as justifying it, the CYA function is a huge justification. So, most of your sports teams are paying for teamworks to communicate, but it's a text message, right? Most of your compliance people are paying for compliance software for paperwork, but it's just PDFs, right? Sports Med has software for notes and charts, but it's just paperwork. So if somebody's like, well, you're just, doing paperwork. It's like, yeah, but everybody else has software to help do their paperwork a little bit better and to keep track of things a little bit better. So I think that's kind of an approach you can take if other people in your department are using software. But it's like, well, they need it because it's like, well, it's the same because it's a better mousetrap. Yeah, you can do it on paper and pencil, but if you want to use computer software and everybody else is doing it, it's hard. I think it's harder to keep you off that list of who needs it. But the CYA part is a really good piece. If you have football, you just have to make sure you're actually using it. So if somebody comes and checks on it, that you're actually doing the legwork, because it does take time. Like that's the thing we haven't talked about in this whole thing is being organized and using an inventory system takes time. It takes effort. You have to be intentional. Things don't accidentally get uploaded to software. So.
Awesome. I think JD has a couple of good points. I think first of all, he figures out like what he needs it for. And I think as me being on the vendor side for a few years, don't think that you have to get it and implement it for 40 sports if you're a single equipment manager. If you've got only time to do one or two sports, do one or two sports, do the ones that are most important to you. I think that's a big one. And I do think, the huge part of don't overestimate or underestimate the time that it does take. If you're hearing a sales pitch that's going to save you a bunch of time, yeah, it might long-term wise, but the upfront of going through that process is sometimes time consuming. So be aware of that. Jeremy, would you finish us up on this question?
Yeah, I mean, to echo a lot of what JD and Tim said, but I'll also add the fact that, in my 22 years, I think a couple of times in the software transition, we were trapped from a compliance side. So it was like, hey, we're switching this to compliance software and you guys have to use this, you have to do that. And where that was kind of frustrating for us is if the compliance officer is changing every 3 years and your software is changing every 3 years, you don't really have time to settle in, or once you do, then you're changing again. So I think, stand strong on what you want. Like the guy said, do your homework, dig into it. And it's what's best for you and your organization, not just because somebody else does it or whatever, but just do your homework and what's the best fit for you guys. And feel comfortable with it. Like JD said, we're doing the work. The compliance officers aren't coming down and counting the stuff and putting it in and tracking it. We are. So, it's what's best for you and what's best for us. And the last thing I'll say is, the equipment department is arguably one of the highest spenders in the department. So obviously the CYA standpoint from the protective side, but also from a spending side. So justification wise, you're spending millions upon millions of dollars a year. We got to be able to track it somehow. So, to me, I guess it's a little easier for me just because of what we've been through from a gap analysis standpoint and going through that process and understanding it better. Yeah, audit's a scary word, but like JD said, most of the time they're just doing their job and they're really just trying to help you out. And we're not doing anything corrupt or anything like that, but we may not see something the way that they see it, or we may not, catch something that, hey, that doesn't really make sense. And all of a sudden you get in defense mode. But what you really have to realize is they're just trying to help you out and really just protect the organization. So all that to say, get what's best for you, what you're comfortable with, and stand strong on it. I know it's hard sometimes with administrators or whatever, but come into it educated, come into it with a firm stance and a belief, and you'll make it happen.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. That's it as far as our conversations. I don't have any other questions that came in. Melly, I did want to give you a few minutes to address the group, so go ahead.
Hello, everyone. It's a gorgeous day here in Chicago. It's probably about 75 degrees and sunny. I hope everybody else is enjoying some beautiful weather and some time off. Great topic. Gentlemen, you did a great job in describing the importance of inventory control, institutional control, and just pride in your work is super important. I just went through another audit here at Northwestern, and I've been here 33 years. It's probably about the 15th one I've had. And if I could offer any advice, it's really they're looking after processes. So make sure you have your policies and procedures written up in a manner that you can defend, in a manner, and when I mean defend, like that you're practicing it, right? So if you set a standard that we are not tracking socks, then make sure it's put in there. So all they're looking for is processes in place. So make sure whatever it is that you're doing, whatever you're able to do in an equipment room, is follow those procedures. So everyone should be taking a look at their individual policies and procedures and making sure their practices are following them. So that's my first piece of advice. Number two is, it's crazy, like with these new rules from the NCAA, I mean, like everything is pretty much deemed unusable at the end of the year. Back uniforms, that's pretty much the only thing. We're turning over like a retail store every single year, all new in, all new out, and then we're moving things out. So just find your policies and procedures and make sure you're following the practice. And there's so many different software companies, but you got to sit down and use it. Most importantly, not just for understanding, that's part of our jobs as professional athletic equipment managers, to show, like, if we want to start, showing that we want money and raises and titles and responsibilities, that we're following just basic business practices as individuals in our equipment spaces. That's really important. If I could offer some unsolicited advice there. Secondarily, what was I going to say? I wrote it down. Oh, yeah, liability, especially football, lacrosse, hockey. If you're sending stuff out for reconditioning, you got to keep that tracked every single time, and you better keep your records forever. You could have a kid that one day wake up and say, you know what? I think I have concussion syndrome, whatever. I apologize. I don't know it off the top of my head. And you could be sued as part of a grander lawsuit, and you could be named. But if you're able to show that, hey, this helmet was sent out for reconditioning, it was recertified every single year, you got to track the history of every single piece of protective equipment. That's super, super important. And that's where these software companies can be really handy. They'll save everything for you forever, whether it's in the cloud or not. So that's my piece of advice. Lastly, I hope everyone's enjoys what we got. A couple more weeks. Soccer's reporting soon for so many of us. Can't believe it's starting again. You just never know what's going to happen to you in the athletic department. You just never know. You're going to wake up one day and you're going to be like, what is going on? So that's why we need to protect ourselves. And that's definitely through record keeping. And it's just as important as a well-fit helmet, in my opinion. So I hope that's helpful to all of you. cranking along on some things for the association. We've got a lot of things happening in the next year that we're going to be moving forward on. And I hope all of you are enjoying yourselves. Thank you, panelists, for your time today. Thank you. We have 95 people on here today. That's terrific. Nobody's out golfing. I like that. Let's get to work. I'm going to go golf now. I'm just kidding.
Thanks,
All
Mel.
right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Mary. Jeremy, JD, Tim, thanks again. Appreciate everyone. Make sure you scan your QR code for credit. We will see you in a couple months. Good luck to everybody. Stay safe.
Hey, Josh, real quick.
Sorry.
Sorry, it's okay. With the mentorship program, we'll be rolling out new partnerships here, probably August, September. We're waiting for test scores and all that stuff. So if you want to be a mentor or want a mentee, or vice versa, send us an email. We'd love to have more people join, and that will be going out here soon.
Thanks, Katie.